this is Miss Humbert here. Today we're going to be doing Unit 1, Notes 9. So we're going to be talking about the relationship between angles. So on the previous note sheet you learned about identifying angles and parts of an angle, and today we're going to look at the relationship between multiple different angles. Let's go ahead and let's take a look. So first of all is adjacent angles. So two angles are adjacent if and only if. So the only way that can be true is if they share a common side and have no interior points in common. So let's just draw an example. So here's my example here. So I have this and this. And I'm going to label this angle P, Q, and N. And it's going to have a ray coming out of it, QT. So the ray coming out of it is going to be QT. So if it looks like this, then we can say the angle PQT, angle PQT, and angle TQN are adjacent. Notice that they're right next door to each other. They share a side, okay, but they wouldn't have any interior points of the angle in common. Let's take a look at the next one. Linear pair. Two angles form a linear pair if and only if they are adjacent angles and their non-common sides form a straight line. So let's just draw a picture because sometimes it's easier to visualize that. So we have M, we have point N, and we have point Y. Coming out from point N is point W. So we can say that angle M, this angle right here, angle M, N, W, and angle right here, angle W, N, Y, are linear pairs because if you were to add these two angles together, it would equal 180. So maybe put that as a reminder to yourself that the two angles need to add to 180. Lastly, let's take a look at vertical angles. Two angles are vertical angles if and only if they're non-adjacent angles formed by two intersecting lines. So let's start by drawing two intersecting lines like so. I'm going to have angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4. Now here's a really cool part about vertical angles is that vertical angles are congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Angle 4 is congruent to angle 2. So vertical angles are always congruent, and you'll use that idea moving forward in angle relationships. So let's take a look at some other versions. So complementary angles. Two angles are complementary if and only if the sum of their measures is 90 degrees. Aren't you happy I'm not making you write this down? You should make sure you remember it though, okay? Two angles are supplementary if and only if the sum of their measures is 180. So complementary is 90 degrees. Supplementary is 180 degrees. So take a look at that chart given to us. For the angle measurement listed below, give the measure of supplementary angle and the measure of complementary angles if it exists. So if our angle is 25 degrees, the complement, what we're going to do is take 90 minus 25 degrees, which is going to give us an angle measure of 65 degrees. So the complement angle to 25 degree angle is 65 degrees. So to get the supplement, we're going to take 180, subtract the angle, and we get 155 degrees. So the supplement of the 25 angle is 155 degrees. Same thing for 87. I'm going to take 90 and I'm going to subtract 87. So the complement is only going to be 3 degrees. That is a pretty freaking small angle, right? So let's take a look at the supplement now. So for the supplement, what we're going to do is we're going to take 180 and we are going to subtract 87. And that ends up getting us 93 degrees for the complement. Taking a look at number 3, I have an angle that's 134 degrees. Well, if the angle I'm given is obtuse, meaning it's greater than 90 degrees, then the complement doesn't exist. So I'm not going to have a complement. So to get the supplement, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 180 and subtract 134 degrees, and for that I end up getting 46 degrees. What I would like you guys to do is go ahead and fill out 4 and 5 on this chart on your own. If you're stuck, please come let me know and I'd be more than happy to help. So let's take a look at this next one. So we want to look at this graph, these intersecting lines to help us. So we want to name a pair of vertical angles. So vertical angles are going to sit across from each other. So this and this are vertical angles. So let's practice naming that angle. So here's the angle right here. So I'm going to follow it around. So I need the angle symbol out front, and then I go from V to the vertex X to Z. So I'm going to label that V, X, Z. Then I'm going to do the other vertical angle, so I'm following this around. So first I went to W, and then X, and then Y. So that right there are your vertical angles. How many pairs of vertical angles are there in this diagram? Well, we have the pair of 60s. Let me get a pen here. We have the pair of 60s, and then we have the pair of 120. Oh, my computer is going to be mad at me. So we have the 60s and the 120s. Okay, I'm sorry about all the blue screens. Okay, so there. Next, number 3, name 2 angles that form a linear pair. So we want angles that are going to form a line. So let's take a look and let's find a line. I'm going to go ahead and erase that. So I notice here's a line right here, and I have 2 angles that form it. This angle and this angle. So I'm going to name them. So I have angle, I'm going to start with the W, and then I'm going to go to the X, and then to the V. Now, you don't necessarily, you could also have named that VXW if you wanted. And I noticed that going this way, W, X, and Y, that angle is going to form a linear pair. I want you guys to pause the video and write down one other linear pair. Okay, so let's take a look at number 4. Number 4 says that the degree measure of an angle is 3 times the measure of its supplement. Now, whenever you see the word supplement, remember that it needs to add to 180 degrees. So I'm going to basically split it up into 180. Okay, so I'm going to have one angle that I'm going to call X. The supplement of that angle is 3 times that measure. So I have my X measure, and I'm going to multiply it by 3. Now, since that is a supplement, when I add these 2 angles together, they need to add up to 180. So X plus 3X is 4X, and that's going to be equal to 180. So now I'm solving this for X. So 180 divided by 4 is going to give me 45 degrees. So what that tells me is that this angle right here is 45 degrees. Now it asks us to find the measure of both, so I need to find the measure of the second one. So I'm going to take 3 times 45 degrees. Well, 3 times 45 is going to give me 135. So the measure of this angle right here is 135 degrees. So that's your final answer for number 4. Looking at number 5, the degree measure of one of 2 complementary angles. Okay, complementary angle. So complementary is going to be 90 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to draw a 90-degree angle. So one of my angles is again going to be labeled X. Then the other one is 6 more than twice the other angle. Well, twice the other angle is going to be 2X, and then we're going to have plus 6. So now what I need to do is I need to have those add up to 90. So X plus 2X plus 6 needs to equal 90. So now I'm going to go ahead and solve that for X. So X plus 2X is 3X. Plus 6 is equal to 90. So then I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides, and I get that 3x is equal to 84. So now I need to divide both sides by 3x, or by 3, so I can solve for x, and I get that x is equal to 28. So this degree measure here is 28 degrees, but I still need to solve for that degree measure right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the x out completely, and I'm going to put the 28 instead, plus 6. So 2 times 28 plus 6, when you type that into your calculator, you end up getting 62 degrees. So the measure of that angle then is going to be 62 degrees. Let's take a look at number 6 and number 7. So starting with number 6, given that the measure of angle 2 is equal to 120 degrees and the measure of angle 4 is equal to 2x plus 40, we need to find x. So the measure of angle 2 is 120 degrees. The measure of angle 4 is 2x plus 40. So I need to figure out how angle 2 and angle 4 are related. Well, I notice that they're vertical angles, which means they are equal to each other. So that means that 2x plus 40 is equal to 120. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 40 from both sides. So I get 2x is equal to 120 minus 40, which is going to give me 80. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and I get that x is equal to 40 degrees. So that's my answer for number 6, is that x is 40 degrees. So now let's go ahead and let's take this off, and let's take a look at number 7. So number 7 tells us first that measure of angle 1 is 3x plus 10. Measure of angle 4 is x minus 30. And it wants us to find the measure of angle 3. Well, let's start by finding x. So what I notice is that angle 1 and angle 4 are supplements. They are a linear pair. They form a line, which means that the two added together need to equal 180. So 3x plus 10 plus x minus 30 needs to equal 180. Not 18, 180. So let's combine our x's. X plus 3x is going to give me 4x. 10 minus 30 is going to give us a negative 20, and then that's going to be equal to 180. So now I'm going to go ahead and add 20 to both sides. So I get that 4x is equal to 200. And now what I need to do is to divide both sides by 4. So then I end up getting that x is equal to 50 degrees. Well, how does this help me? I need to know what angle 3 is. Well, notice that angle 1 and angle 3 are in fact vertical angles, which means that angle 3 is also 3x plus 10. Conveniently, I already know what x is, so I have 3 times 50 plus 10. So 3 times 50 is 150. Plus 10 is going to give me 160 degrees, and that's actually the measure of angle 3 and angle 1. Next, let's take a look at number 8. We want to find the measure of angle 5 and 6, given that angle 5 is 3x and angle 6 is 2x minus 15. So see that little square in the corner? That means it's a right angle, which tells you that the two angles add up to 90 degrees. So 3x plus 2x minus 15 is equal to 90. 3x plus 2x is 5x minus 15 is equal to 90. So then I'm going to go ahead and subtract or add 15 to both sides to start solving for that x. So then I get that 5x is equal to 105. And then I get that x is equal to 21. So what I want you guys to do is pause the video and plug in x for each of those so that you can get what angle 5 and angle 6 are equal to. Let's take a look. We're going to talk about perpendicular lines quickly. So two lines are perpendicular if and only if they form right angles. So we use a special symbol for perpendicular, and it basically just looks like an upside down T. That's our symbol for perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines are going to form 4 right angles on either side of it. And perpendicular lines intersect to form 4 adjacent angles. So what is this crazy lady talking about? Well, let's draw a picture. So I'm going to call this line L, and I'm going to call this line M. And if they're perpendicular, that means each of these angles are going to be a right angle. Now, if each of those are right angles, we can say that L is perpendicular to line M. So that's how that notation works. Let's take a look at this last problem here. So for number 9, it says find x and y so that PR and SQ are perpendicular. So PR is this line and SQ is this line, which means that this angle right here needs to be a right angle. So I notice that I have 2x and I have 5x plus 6. So I need to find first x that would make that a right angle. So what that means is 2x plus 5x plus 6 needs to add up to 90 degrees. So then we get 7x plus 6 is equal to 90. Subtract 6 from both sides, and I get that 7x is equal to 84. Divide both sides by 7. When you do that, you end up getting that x is equal to 12 degrees. So if x is equal to 12 degrees, that forms a right angle. Now, we need to figure out what y needs to be. So if y is going to be a number, we need it so that this angle right here is perpendicular, or a right angle, for those two to be perpendicular. So that means that 4y minus 2 needs to equal 90. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 to both sides, and I get that 4y is equal to 92. Then I'm going to divide both sides by 4, and I end up getting that y is equal to 23 degrees. That is what's going to make it a right angle. So that concludes your note video for today. Go ahead and show me a completed note sheet when you are done. Thanks for listening.